Hey guys, I'm sitting here with Randy. I got Randy here with me tonight, my cousin Randy. I don't know if you guys saw him on the other podcast, but if you haven't seen him yet, Randy, go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Randy Waters. I'm here talking with my cousin Jake about different subjects, philosophy, politics. Right now, we're just kind of shooting the shit and talking a little bit about who we'd like to see to be president.
Yeah, and we were just talking, giving our own opinions, and you were just getting ready to tell me who you'd like to see as president.
Don't laugh at me. I really would love to see Matthew McConaughey as our president. Especially after his book Green Lights. I just, man, I feel like he would do a good job. All right. I feel like he'd do a killer job. To be honest with you,
I want to see him. I want to see him do well in Texas first. He's running for governor in Texas right now.
He knows he's gonna win if that's the case. If that's true, he's gonna win.
Yeah, he's got a good platform. I want to see him do the base level of politics and work his way up. Do I think he has the potential of doing it someday? Oh yeah, I definitely think he has.
What do you think? Okay, so what type of, this is another interesting one because regardless of how it goes down, he's gonna have to pick a party or pick not to be a part of the party. What do you think? Do you think he would be a Republican or Democrat, or do you think he would choose to be independent?
So, what I wanted, and we were talking about our bigger presidential candidates earlier.
Yeah.
And in order for what I want Matthew McConaughey to be able to do, I think people with bigger names need to do it first. And I told you my first vote when it came to the last few years with presidential candidates was Bernie Sanders. And when I say the two candidates that I think need to go independent now that they have the pull that they need to, that they've shown Bernie Sanders has shown some diehard Bernie fans, and Donald Trump has shown that he can pull at least 40 to 50% of society.
Yeah.
So if you can pull at least that much, you need to run as an independent, and you need to break this two-party system that we have. But the problem is we have a two-party system where you're not going to get on the ballot to be able to debate if you're not in these two parties. You have to yield to these lines in order to be able to debate other people or even get on that platform. And that's where I think the biggest drawback is. I would love to see Matthew McConaughey run as an independent where because I don't think any actual politician in any field falls 100% under Democratic ideas or 100% under Republican. I think no human can actually fall under those characteristics. I think they do their best to follow party lines and to please people, but I don't think it's possible to totally encompass all of those ideas. The closest you can get is Joe Biden. I do think Joe Biden is what you consider a classic Democrat.
Well, you know who else? I mean, for example, on the Republican side, I consider Mitt Romney to be the quintessential Republican.
Agreed.
I think so. Yeah, when you're looking at it from that point of view, I mean, other than those two guys, I don't really know anybody that encapsulates the ideals of either side.
So a lot of people like to say Ted Cruz is the ideal Republican.
Oh God, that fucking weasel.
Let me reflect just a little bit.
Please do.
I don't think he's the ideal Republican for the simple fact that you'll see this new thing in the Democratic Party where they're trying to win over the Christian and religious voting sector. Because for the longest time, the Democrats have been like, oh, we're against religion altogether.
Right.
We don't even want to address it. And the Republicans are like, oh, yeah, if you believe in God, you're in God's party over here. And
the country club party.
But I don't think that that's actually the classic Republican idea. The classic Republican idea doesn't have anything to do with religion. So I do think Ted Cruz has a Republican twist on things where he's tying religion into it as well as being
Yeah,
a
for
Republican.
votes. Oh, of
But
course.
I do think Mitt Romney falls more on the lines of that ideal Republican than somebody like Ted Cruz, who's trying to win over, which I do think he does follow his own Christian beliefs, just like Mike Pence does. I would
I
say
do too.
Ted
I
Cruz,
see that. I see
Ted
that as
Cruz
well.
and Mike Pence are so interchangeable that people don't know it. Like
No,
Ted
I
Cruz
see
and
that.
Mike
I
Pence
see that
are
as well.
the same.
Um, my thing with Mitt Romney, what I respect about Mitt Romney is his willingness to stand up to something that he doesn't believe in. That is to me the true Republican ideal. Uh, the way I look at a Republican is, in my opinion, a Republican, their express purpose in politics is to be the guy who goes, you know what, I don't know if we're actually correct on this idea, and I think we should take a second look at it.
The job of the Republican in your idea is to say, hey, I know we probably don't got this right, but
Well, I mean it's true. I look at a Republican that way because I feel
it's
like
already, but no, I'm just saying the way you presented it is you look at the Republicans as you might already have this wrong. We have to think about a good way to save our ass.
well, yeah, in sort of a sense, because I think that for example, if you had only liberals, then what we would have taking place is a situation where, we're trying out new ideas without ever figuring out how damaging they may be, just in general to our society. And I think that a Republican is there to help us second guess. I think the Republican is in part responsible for saying, hey, let's take a look at our national debt, or let's take a look at our
Well,
health care and decide, do we really need this or that? Whereas I think the Democrat is there for the opposite purpose. I think the Democrat,
we're naming multiple parts of these parties. So when you say the liberal that falls under the Democrat, I think the liberal has a different vote than our president Joe Biden would. And I think the conservative, which I would consider myself, which does have to vote Republican in order to fit party lines, those are the people that are worried about the country's debt. Those are the people that are worried about where our tax money's going. Those are the same people that would tell you that taxation is probably illegal. Those are the conservatives and the classic libertarians that are like, hey, don't infringe on my personal rights, because in today's society, I would classify myself as a conservative libertarian, which means I'm a libertarian in the sense that I believe in personal freedoms where it comes to no, you're good. When it comes to my beliefs, I don't want anybody to infringe on the things that I would like to do, as long as I'm not harming others. Those are my jobs as a person, is to not harm others in my own practices.
But here's my thing.
But whether it's religion, whether it's anything, whether it's crime, whether it's anything, you cannot infringe on others' rights. And where
then how do we call that conservative?
But and that's why I'm saying where conservatives come in is they're worried about how the money that we are giving the government is being spent, that is going to the right places, and then also that it's the check and balance system of it. They want to say, okay, it's easy for a government to come out every year and say, hey, we need this many $100,000 for fixing our road systems. And then you as a citizen know, okay, we've given this many hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years, and this is how much our road system's gotten fixed. While the people that are passing the bills for these same laws in order to get the money for these programs to get pushed through are making arms and legs over, they're making the 3-figure salaries, figuring out how to just pass these deals. But the deals themselves aren't coming through successfully because the money's not going to the right places. And I think that's what conservatives worry about, is where the money is directly going. That's where
I
I think.
agree. I mean, I think that that's exactly why we have them. I
But
think
I
that
consider
there
a
is,
modern.
you know,
This is where I think it matters, though. I consider a modern day liberal more worried about individual groups that want to justify themselves. I understand that there's a lot of people that would like to put money towards lesbian dance theory and free colleges and free tuition and stuff like that. But I don't think that's necessarily where I think taxpayers' money needs to go at the moment. I think there's other things. I think just like I feel on as a what is above is below idea, I feel like that with the personal self and the larger group self. If you can't work on
you
yourself,
know,
you can't work on others.
you
If
know,
you can't,
I understand where you're coming from.
but
I
that
personally,
to me is the conservative idea. That's the pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you're not doing well by yourself, don't expect the government to bail you out of a fucking situation. That's not
true.
a
No, no, no. I
conservative
agree
idea.
that you should not expect the government to bail you out.
And that's why I have
But
why
here's the
as a
thing.
conservative, but and just to kind of lay some of my ideas out, that's why as a conservative I feel like I feel bad when I see people taking advantage of whether it's our welfare system, whether it's our food stamp system,
Right.
anything like that, because I do think there's people that need these systems, and I worry that they're going to be depleted by people that are using them that don't need them.
I can understand that. I think
That's
that
my conservative side as well as my liberal side. I don't want people to die in the streets. That's where my liberal side comes in. I want people to be able to live the best life they can without a government overrunning on them and telling them what they can and cannot do. And then my conservative side says I want the government to do the job of the government. And I want to know that my money that I'm giving my government is going to the right places. And that's where
my thing with it is though is that on the conservative side, for example, I think we have a habit of saying that it's up to the individual, but yet at the same time, those very same people, they choose to write laws that happen to put us at a disadvantage. Now the liberals, likewise, their methods, and we can see this clearly in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Their methods of how to deal with social change, social justice, has not always proven to be the most effective. Um, you know, so my personal, I guess, advice to the rest of the country would be to get rid of parties altogether. I think that um I think that creating a party is probably the worst thing we could do for our democracy.
why do you think that though?
Well, I think for one, I think
Do you think
political.
we should, well, do you think we should abolish the two-party system? Or do you think you have a better idea for what we should do in our voting, in our voting
Well,
platform?
so here's the thing. If you abolish the two-party system, all you do is create a system where we allow a million different parties, and that doesn't help us either. That is just the extreme version of what we just tried to get rid of. Uh, I I I think that ultimately, yes, you have to accept that human beings are pattern seeking, that human beings will find reasons to group together, and that human beings will find other reasons why they should also likewise have the same political ideas and beliefs. Um, so parties in that sense of the word is impossible to get rid of. Do I think that we need to have a specific party that follows specific party politic lines, like Democrat and Republican? No, I don't. I think that having such a thing, it pollutes us. It infects our society with with the opposite of desire for understanding your politics and such. And I think that we would do much better if it was a country full of independence. If we were sitting back truly deciding how we feel as an individual about these specific situations and issues, I think we would get along a lot better. I think we would figure out a way to deal with these situations and to express ourselves peacefully. Um, I think some of our biggest reasons for having trouble dealing with each other is because we say, I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, or vice versa. Well, instead of looking at the individual and saying, you're an American, I'm an American, we may have different beliefs, but that's okay. We say to each other, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, vice versa, and I have a problem with you. I can't trust you. You are this or you are that.
Well, and that's where I feel like
Parties are not good for that express reason.
Oh no, I agree. But that's where I feel like our ideas as politicians need to be pushed forward. Like that's where I think where when it comes to like let's just use education for example. If you have something small like education, and some people say, okay, we need to privatize this in order to get more focus and our money directed in the right places. Where if parents are putting more money into schools for the students that they want to succeed, do you think those students should do better? And do you think those students should do better in society? I think they should. If you see more money going into a school system than you do a public school system, which isn't getting funded, teachers aren't getting enough money. They're keeping people on 10 years because it's part of the union system that we have with the Democratic Party. There's these things that fall into lines with parties, which I don't think are necessarily beneficial to both things. And that's where I mean there could be two different opposing ideas, but they both want the best thing. They both want the best education for our kids. But
of course they do.
What's that?
No, I'm saying of course they do.
Yeah, but their route for getting there is different. And so that's why I say it's about presenting your ideas and presenting the best way to get to that point. And then you have to prove that once you get into office. That's the hardest part. Is most people, if they haven't been into office before, they don't know about the stop signs they're going to run into. They don't know.
Yeah, I mean, going into politics, no matter who you are, I think you realize very quick that you're never going to pass a bill by yourself. You have to have some form of cooperation between you and the other side, so to speak. The House of Representatives, for example, never passes a bill really without the other side endorsing it. I mean, do the Senate, do they have trouble doing that? Do they stonewall each other? A hell of a lot more than the House of Representatives do. But it's one of those things that it's like without all the arguing, without all the discussion, the debating, our democracy would not be where it's at today.
That's exactly what you said. That's what I worry about the most is people shutting down discussion, is people not being able to defend their own ideas. Freedom of speech is very important to me.
It is. Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely.
And that's the biggest thing. If people have bad ideas, you as an alternative have to be able to run their ideas into the ground. You have to be able to talk to them and say, this is why I don't think your idea is good. Please defend how you feel about this. And this is why I think it wouldn't work. And then you tell me why it should work. And that's how you get to the conclusion of things. It's almost a scientific practice when you think about it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it is. You're testing theories when it comes to actual politics, because a lot of people are talking about wanting a socialist society or wanting things that have never actually been accomplished in any civilization.
We don't want that. I'll tell you right now. We'll put it this way. The reason communism doesn't work anywhere in the world is because it doesn't fucking work anywhere in the world.
And that's what I mean. According to history, that's never worked before.
China, for example, to give you an idea of how little it works across the world, China has actually not been a true communist government since probably the 70s. China realized very early on that if they do not accept certain aspects of capitalism into their economic formula, that they would end up just like Russia did when they fell apart as the USSR. So there hasn't actually been a real communist government since probably the 60s or 70s. Since then, any government that says they practice communism is essentially a capitalist slash communist state. There is no such thing as a true communist state, and it's because it doesn't work. You know, you end up having somebody who wants power, or you end up having a group of people who take over and decide what is fair and equal for everybody. And that's not a communist, that's not a communist government. That's not a true version of communism. And so, it's likewise with Christianity. Here we are sitting having this conversation, Jake, about the kind of the problems of our society. And it goes back to capitalism, it goes back to communism, it goes back to religion. I mean, it kind of all ties in together. These structures that we've built are an extension of ourselves. Our politics is an extension of our barbaric nature. We treat others like they have no value and such, and we treat them as if they only are needed for votes. And I think that that's really what hurts us as a society. I think the fact that we look at each other as votes and not as people, we really do, we leave ourselves at the mercy of the rest of the world. And I just think that's, to end it on a good, to end the conversation on a good note, I would say that I think America will be okay. I think ultimately what we're doing right now is exactly what everybody's done for 200, 300 years. I think since we started, which was worry about the end. But I think ultimately, I think we'll be okay. I think we will figure out a path through the darkness, through the storm, and we will come out of this okay. But is it going to take some opening up? Yes. Is it going to take some realizing that we're not always right, and that the life we live as Americans isn't always the best life? Yeah, it's going to take that. It's going to take us opening up as citizens and looking at each other and saying, Jake, regardless of your beliefs, and regardless of my beliefs, we're still Americans. You and I are still, we are related in that sense. We are one in that way. And I think that, I think if we continue to forsake that, I think we'll just only end up hurting ourselves. So that's kind of how I would want to end this conversation, is by saying that, if we continue to ignore the fact that we're Americans first and politics should come second, we'll regret that. As citizens, we should be looking at each other and saying, I've got your back, regardless of whether your beliefs differ from mine, because you're American and I'm American. So
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
I know I went on a long spiel, but
no, it's fine. Let's get off politics for a second. I wanna ask you if you heard about something. So I want to give you a little Easter egg and see if you.
I got a little bit of time left. Sarah just stopped by, so hit me with it.
All right. So, do you know about the action that Donald Trump did while he was in president that has to do with flying saucers?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay. So what he did is he basically put an order together where all of the joint private governments had to write their own reports on what we thought of what we thought of flying saucers and anything that we had on the subject. And it had to be released by June of this year.
Right.
It just got released yesterday.
Okay.
I have the document.
I haven't had a chance to look.
I'm about to pull it up for you. Are you ready?
I'm
I
ready.
have the
I'm
actual
ready.
document.
Ready.
Word for word from the government.
Let's see. Let's see. You know, of course, the government would, at this point in time, release a bunch of information that would keep everybody fucking watching. I mean, of course.
Preliminary assessment, unidentified aerial phenomenon. It's a 9-page document. It came out on the 25th of June. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the link in the description so we don't have to go over the whole thing. But basically, it's our government admitting to UFOs, and it has to do with the current Tic Tac situation that you saw on Joe Rogan not too long ago.
Yeah. I remember that. I find it funny though, Jake, that all of a sudden the government, of course, wants nothing more than to, tell the country all about our UFO issues. I mean, come on, can we all get a grip here? I mean,
I'm pretty sure that's the government's way of saying, hey, look over here. Well, we do this over here.
Exactly. Here's the thing. We have a better chance. Okay. We have a better chance of fire not going out when someone throws a bucket of water on it than we do of aliens just randomly happening to decide to be like, you know what? I feel like popping down in Earth's atmosphere today.
And that's the one thing. That's the one thing. That's why I'm going to put this in the description. The government is at least admitting that they know that this technology is not from this earth.
Yeah, well, that's what they tell you. I mean, let's be honest here.
When have you ever
do in their land?
No. In all honesty, when have you ever heard the U.S. government admit that much? This is the first in history that has ever happened.
Does it not scare you a little bit to wonder why they would admit that?
Hey, just say thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't trust them one bit, and I definitely don't trust them when they tell me I should. I get it. I think that I'm not anti-government. I'm just anti the bullshit, and I find it hard to trust any one of those politicians who seeks votes, any one of the people in the government that allow us to some of this information that's no longer classified, and once again, I almost feel guilty saying the word allow, because I think it's insane that I would even think that way about a government that is really under my control. I mean, I am a citizen of the United States. I pay taxes. I have every right, just alongside every 350 million one of these souls, to decide what should be done in this country. And the fact that I would even assume that the government, again, when I said that in my language, in the way that I spoke, by saying that I hope they would allow, I mean, that just shows how it's been bred into us as citizens to believe that our government, while we call it a democracy, it acts way more like a monarch. It tells us what to do. We don't decide. We have a piece of paper that tells us we have rights, but yet the funny thing is none of us know what those rights are. So, I think the more we continue down that path, regardless of what good may come from it, I think we're only hurting ourselves. We're only asking for more trouble. And to be honest, we're asking for people who are far smarter than Donald Trump. The scary thing about Donald Trump is that Donald Trump showed you how easy it is for a guy with not that much intelligence to take over a government, essentially. And I mean, that does scare me a bit when I think about what would happen if we got a truly intelligent man in office and he decided to take things over. It wouldn't be very hard for him to do so. Um, and it was very easy for Donald Trump. All he had to do was incite a fervor among his constituents, and people followed right behind him. So, you know, me personally, I'm always the guy who's gonna say, I don't believe you. It's just my nature. You'll never catch me sitting in the crowd going, yeah, I agree with that guy, along with the 9 others. I don't think that's the right way to live. I think anytime the group says that's the way to go, I think that's the exact time that you should have someone stand up and go, I don't think we're all right here. So, to end it on that note, I hope everything goes well. But I do have my doubts about society as a whole. I do have my doubts about us as individuals and how we're able to handle things. Um, Americans, especially young Americans, are very thin-skinned, and the older Americans now are at a place where they've realized that they have fucked themselves over the last 10 years and no longer have any power. Um, and so it's a scary place as a society to see us all in, because we're literally walking a tightrope between not caring at all about our politics and caring in a way that doesn't serve us. Um, for the best example is right now, Jake. We care a lot about politics, but yet nothing of what we say will really make a difference. And the truth is that these people, unless they're completely ousted from our government, we'll never see real change. So I just wish that the American people would realize their own power. I wish they would realize that it's time to stand up and say no to these people, because they don't deserve our respect. They don't deserve our mercy. They don't. They've fucked us every time. They've done everything they can to make more money off our backs, and they don't care about us. And if we continue along the idea that we should be voting these men and women in for votes, that's why we're doing it, then we've completely missed the point of a democracy. We've completely missed the point as a society about what is really good and what isn't. And it's just sad to see. It's sad to see us kind of walk away in the opposite direction, because we're so much better than that as a society. We are so much smarter. And I just wish we would notice that. I do. I know I went on a long rant. I know.
So, so what Randy is trying to say, everybody, is go out and get your vaccine, eat your Wheaties, and listen to everything your government says, and that way they'll keep our YouTube videos up on the internet.
All I'm saying, I'm gonna end it on this. All I'm saying is to make sure before
you you're cutting out a little bit.
Just my main thing is just trust in your don't believe what they say simply because they tell you to.
No. If they're the CDC, you have to listen to everything they say, because they have the right answers. I've actually.
My sister just came over. Do not get me started.
I have to interject just because I was demonetized the other day on one video because we talked about COVID, and so I have to say these experts know exactly what they're talking about. If they say double mask, you double mask.
You're
If they
darn right.
get 3 vaccinations, you need to get 3 vaccinations. You do what they tell you.
You're darn right. I
But
agree.
besides that, we have our own opinions,
Sounds good.
which are not medical advice.
No, they're not. Not at all. Not even in the slightest. I will. I am not a. I'm not a master of that craft. So don't take anything I say as fact.
I mean, yes. I mean, there's a lot. We are not practicing doctors. I mean, I know Fauci is also not a practicing doctor, but he is a member of the CDC and he knows apparently what he's doing. So we believe him.
All I gotta say is, yeah, I didn't go to school for medicine, so all my beliefs come from personal experience, which may or may not be correct. I highly doubt.
Which is honestly, whether you have a degree or not, which is all you really have to go by, is your personal experience. Whether you learned it in school, whether you learned it and got your degree in that specific field, that's the one thing. Like people that study these things, those that was their personal experience. They studied these things and they learned that knowledge,
Yeah.
and that's what everybody's expressing, and that's what this YouTube channel, which I'm glad you came on tonight, Randy.
Me
is
too.
it's you getting to express your personal life experiences and your feelings towards things. It's not saying that your answers are right. It's not saying that we know more than anybody else and telling anybody to follow steps. It's
Right.
just our personal facts on and how we've dealt with things in our lives, and we're just talking about them. And I just think we have to make that 100% clear because a lot of people get confused.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, I also I know I can be a bit intense when I get into discussions like this. So I know personally that my delivery can be mistaken for conviction, and I will say,
I think for you it's more personal conviction. It's something that you've convinced yourself of that it's the best route for yourself. It doesn't mean it's the best route for others. It's something that
no, not at all.
It's your personal truth that you've come to, which I have my own, and we disagree on some things and a lot of things. But it's the fact that, like we've talked about, is that we can sit down and have a civil conversation of the things we agree on, and that's
well, at the end of the day, Jake, one thing I've always disagreed with, and I got to end it on this one, but I will say one thing I've always disagreed with people is that it does not matter, man, what belief you may have. At the end of the day, you're an American, and so am I. So at the end of the day, unless you do something so egregious that I cannot defend you, you're an American, and I owe it to you as an obligation of the fact that I'm responsible for the rights that I hold as a human being, as an American citizen. It is my obligation to hear you out. It is my obligation and my duty to, as an American citizen, to hear your points, to decide whether in that moment I feel like it is something worth listening to or not. And I think if more Americans
I agree with you. What's the point of having freedoms if we can't express them?
You're darn right. And what's the point of having these freedoms if you can't express them? I mean, it takes both sides. It takes it takes one person disagreeing, one person saying, I don't agree with what you're disagreeing about. It takes both of those to create a good conversation that everybody can benefit from. So we need to get back to that as a society. We need to get back to the place where we tolerate what each other says. We tolerate what each other does, and we have respect for each other's opinions. I think without that, we are really going to run into a horrible place in the next 20 to 50 years. I think if we continue to go down the path that we're offended by everything someone says, or we are ready to disown our neighbor because we disagree with them politically, that's a dangerous place. That's right before Civil War. From a historical point of view, Jake, I have watched it, or I shouldn't say I've watched it, but I've read about it a million times over. When a society reaches a place to where they're no longer willing to work with each other, the only option is violence. And I would hate to see us as a country reach that place.
Before we get down a negative path, that's where me and you both agree. I think our society is divided today. I think in the last 4 years, our society has become more divided.
Yeah.
We might disagree on the source of that division, but at the same time, we're seeing a common day civil war, and that's what neither of us want. I mean, whether we're on opposite party lines or not, neither one of us want that.
And well, I think
whatever we think is the best solution to avoid that, though.
I do agree that you and I disagree about the method of execution that we should partake in. I think.
Do you think our community is divided now? Do you think there's a racial division? Do you think there's things going on where people are convinced that there's other people against them in their regular society? Or do you think we're working together as, like, I think we're closer after 9/11 than we are now?
I think we are working together, but I do think that we have been bamboozled by our government to believe that there is an issue regarding race. I think that as a society, we want to find a scapegoat for our problems. But at the same time, I would say this out of respect for anybody who's Black or African American. I've read Frederick Douglass's autobiography about what it was like to be a slave. I've personally read that book. I know that book in from out. And I will say, to be honest, it brings me to the feeling of almost like I want to tear up a little bit because of the amount of pain that man, along with millions of other people that were of the same skin color as him, went through. And I can understand. I can understand why people of the same color of skin may feel like, even today, that they are under the yoke of white people. Do I agree that is the enemy? No, I do not think that we.
And here's what
I don't think you and I, Jake, are the enemy of these people.
No, not at all, not at all.
But I
think we agree with each other on this. But the best thing I want in society now is to tell people of that same skin color, whether you're African American, you want to consider yourself Black, whatever you want to consider yourself. I think the worst thing to do is to tell your kids that there's this inherent government or race or anything else that's trying to keep you down in society, because I think it is detrimental to your growth as a person. No matter what. I
agree. No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you there.
Whether you're a current white person talking about critical race theory and you're worried that people are going to consider the white race bad because slavery was a thing before and we got rid of it, or whether you're an African American who their family lineage had to go through this race.
I think critical race theory is a bunch of horseshit. I do.
No. We don't have to dive into that. That'll give us another.
My bad. Well, my thing is really.
No. What I was saying was, no matter what spectrum you are on that, you can understand the fact that it's negative to tell anybody of any race that they are starting a step behind.
Oh, of course.
The best thing in the U.S. is to tell people you have the most opportunities here as everybody else, and then prove it to them, because that's our government's job and us as a people, for the people that we're voting in, You need to show people we want an open country. We want open borders in the sense that we want you to come here legally. We don't want you to commit crimes here. Like, and that's what most people want as a society. We want
Oh yeah.
all the best people from all of the best countries coming here. We're not gonna lie. Most people don't want criminals coming to the country and making a mockery of it, because
Of
most
course not.
we have our own shit going on where we're trying to deal with our own Americans and their fucking problems. We got our own internal terrorists that we got to deal with, much
Yeah.
much less exterior ones.
Right.
I mean, this is the first time growing up that I've noticed that I've seen people have more of a problem being American than any other time in history. Most people are not proud to be American these days.
It really.
I mean, I was in middle school when 9/11 happened, and so what I say is like I was reignited into this thing of nationalism and respecting one's country and understanding the U.S. But I don't think that's necessarily been the whole lineage of the U.S. And I don't respect the slavery times or anything like that. But at the same time, I don't discount anybody that's grown from there. And that's why I always say we're growing as a country. We want the best from our country. And I think you feel the same way. But I don't want to drag this out too long. I know we could both go for a while.
That's true.
I appreciate you coming on tonight, Randy, and I hope you have a good night. And tell Sarah I said hello. And if you want to close with anything, feel free to. Oh, hey, Sarah. And if you want to close with anything, go ahead and let it out.
I would just like to say that, for anybody who's watching, anybody who decides to watch, that at the end of the day, this is the exact type of conversations that two people should be having. And again, I stress the importance of tolerance. As a young man, especially as a young man, I was very intolerant of other people's viewpoints. I felt that my view was the right way and that nobody else really had a valuable opinion to hold. And I think a lot of young people feel the same way. And I would just suggest to anybody who's watching that may be young, to really second guess that and to think about that, because we need to suspend our judgments as citizens now more than ever, and our judgments about each other. And we need to really come together, and realize our common bonds, realize also our common struggles. African Americans may have went through something horrible, what they went through, unimaginable torture. But at the same time, the majority of people today back them. The majority of people have their back. And then likewise, I do too. And I don't think that we should be looking at each other in a way that is aggressive. I don't think we should be looking at each other in a way that negatively affects or impacts one another. So be tolerant, be willing to hear the other person's side, because we're not always right. I know for myself personally that I definitely have a lot to learn in life, and I am not always right. And that a lot of the time in my life, I've come to realize that I need to keep an open mind. So that's my message. Keep an open mind, suspend your judgments, and be willing to hear the other side. You will learn something by doing that. You definitely will not learn anything if you think you already know what the right answer is. So,
well, thank you, Randy.
You know what I mean?
And, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, my man.